You've been very busy and have found a lot of meaning and success in your life after an Olympic running career. And from speaking with other Olympic athletes, this is something that is a major concern. I've talked to folks about the documentary or the film, The Cost of Gold, and
Hmm.
finding identity when your whole life is wrapped around your
Yeah.
sport at that
Yeah.
level. Now, was this something that you did purposefully? And and what has life been like after running? Even though I did see you just ran a marathon as well. Maybe not after running, while you
Yeah.
run.
The beautiful thing about running is that it can be a lifelong sport. It's something that you can do with a group or by yourself anywhere. And so I'm grateful to be in love with a sport that offers that variety. But I will say that my relationship with sport has had to evolve. When I started as a high schooler, it was kind of on a whim because my friends were doing it. So it was more of the social desire to be part of the group. Then I continued running in college because it was an opportunity. I could get a college scholarship, which was huge for me. And then when I went pro, honestly, one of the coolest things that attracted me to professional running was the fact that I would get to travel all over the world and race in these huge stadiums in major cities. And so it was more like the idea of the lifestyle was one that I was really excited about in my 20s. And then in my 30s, when I was still competing but had my first kid, I came up against a sporting world that had not made space for mothers. Um, my shoe contract, about 4 months postpartum, I got a call that they had a right to reduce me by 40% because I wouldn't be ranked top five in the world. And then I also was facing a loss of health insurance because as track and field athletes, we're all contractors with our shoe companies and we have to earn our health insurance through performance. And so I wasn't racing. And so that meant I could lose health insurance not only for me now, but also for my child. And when I went then into that, so a lot of the work, and we'll probably dig into it later, but a lot of the work that I did around kind of women's sports and advocacy had been an undercurrent of my master's was in humanities with an emphasis on film studies and women's studies. And I didn't know what I was like, why or what I was going to do with that, but those were two areas I was really interested in. And so when you ask about, that transition, and that evolution, for me, my relationship with running has evolved. When I stopped competing professionally, took probably a year and a half away from running because I was so heartbroken by the business of sport. Navigating shoe contracts, navigating health insurance, navigating doping in sport, like the business of sport was not at all what I expected it to be. And that was really hard. Um, but after about a year and a half, I started realizing that my relationship to running could evolve and that what I loved about running, that kind of core innocence, was twofold: the ability to connect my mind with my body. And so when I go out on a run, I don't listen to music. For me, I just love being outside, moving my body, letting all of my thoughts come together. But then also the community. So the people that are in running and the relationships I've built through it, all the way to my husband, who I met through racing. That innocence, that kindness, that love was still there. And so I had to sort of separate the business of sport from that deep, true passion for it and true love for it. And then when it came to my own career path, going from a very quantifiable, I need to run a better time, like, personal best, medals, top in the world, like clarity on what success looked like. And I knew I had the ability to achieve at the highest level under the highest stakes. And I knew that that had value, but it took me a while to understand how to translate that in the business context because a lot of people, when I would be looking for job opportunities or looking for that next career step, I could get a meeting about like, oh, that's so cool. You've done X, Y, and Z, but like, we don't know what to do with you. Or let me introduce you to like the internship program for, the 20-year-olds just out of college. Because like on the surface, I hadn't worked in a traditional business context for maybe 15 years, but they weren't recognizing these incredibly hard-earned traits that I had gathered and honed through my professional athletic career. So that was really tough. Also the business of sport defined me as like I was expected to be narrowly focused on performance, and I was discouraged actively from going outside that box. And so there was this sort of existential crisis of like, who am I if I'm not a runner? Um, Ultimately, it took me a few years. Um, I gave myself what I called this bucket list year, and it was completely kind of self-created, the kind of boundaries of that 1 year time frame, the objective of it. It was all like self-imposed. But for me, it was really important and really valuable to say, I'm going to give myself a year to take all of these projects that I've sort of thought about or half started, but never allowed myself nor was allowed to fully invest and bring to completion. And let me see in that year time constraint what I can achieve. And what was really incredible was, I had to hustle. I was kind of earning money here and there to support myself. But what came out of it were projects like Medalist Mindset, which is this leadership framework I created with Lauren Gibbs, who's a fellow Olympian. And it's all about taking sports performance tools and applying them to business and life goals, like taking them out of sport and knowing that performance is performance. And let's help others have those tools. And then Strong as a Mother, which is my book that's coming out in February. And that book is, how do we empower mothers with information about how to be active and healthy during pregnancy in a way that supports not just them, but their baby as well. And so that long answer to your question is it was a journey. I think the most important thing, and I didn't always do this perfectly, but especially in this most recent transition, was leading into kind of what are my passions? Like, what can I not stop thinking about? And once I finally had the choice of who I was working with, to really prioritize those relationships that felt healthy, fulfilling, where like I could be my most expansive self and it wouldn't threaten them. And as silly as that might sound, I face that often. And so I think anybody going through a transition, whatever it might be, the more you can lean into, what is my passion? What are my strengths? What makes me unique compared to the other people around me? And if you are really focusing on those things that you love and you're then working hard, you will figure out that successful
Mm. There's so many things there.
path.
Very busy. And what I